Good morning. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Orient Kamasu reference RA-AA0006L19B. So this is the blue dial version of the Orient Kamasu on the black silicone rubber strap. So I paid £190 for the watch and I bought the watch from Amazon. Firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items that come with the Kamasu. So I'm pleased to report that the Orient Kamasu comes in this very aesthetically pleasing matte black vinyl coated watch box. The lid of the watch box has a brushed satin finish aluminium plate which is pop riveted in the four corners. So very well made, good quality watch box, bearing in mind the low tier price point of the piece. It's only £190. It's certainly superior to the watch box one would get with a Seiko 5KX, for example. So the interior of the watch box is fully fabric lined with a satin fabric, and the watch itself sits on a padded pillow cushion which is also covered in fabric, and I really like it. I think the Orient watch boxes are a level above the Seiko watch boxes, and that's interesting because Seiko Epson are the parent company of Orient, so effectively they make both Seikos and also Orient watches, and I find it a curiosity that Seiko don't actually use the same quality of watch box for their Seiko 5s. I really think that they should improve. So I think Orient watch boxes are a level above Seiko 5 watch boxes. So I'll talk you through the other items that come with the Kamasu. One also gets this international guarantee booklet which is translated into multiple foreign languages, as you can see. So very useful read if you need to make a 12-month warranty claim if your watch needs a repair, for example. One also gets this very comprehensive owner's instruction manual, and again this is translated into multiple foreign languages, and it details how to operate the automatic movement in the Kamasu, the caliber F6922. So it explains how to operate the day-date complication, set the time and use the hand winding and hacking functions. Very useful read if you're unfamiliar with the caliber F6922. Lastly, one also gets this Orient Plastic Tag, which is matte black plastic, and it's embossed with the Orient brand logo in silver. On the reverse of the tag it has the barcode and reference number of the piece. So I'll talk you through the watch. So this is the Orient Kamasu and it's the blue dial version. There are several different versions of the Kamasu. One can also buy the watch on a oyster style stainless steel bracelet which has hollow end links, push pins and a pressed metal clasp. Now, personally, I think a worthwhile upgrade to the oyster style bracelet is a strap code Super O Boya solid end link and milled clasp bracelet. I really think the strap code bracelet further enhances the Kamasu. I don't regard the oyster style bracelet that comes on the Kamasu to be acceptable due to the hollow folded end links and the pressed metal clasp. So I chose to review this black silicone rubber strap version because I actually think it's a better buy. So the Kamasu has been produced since 2018 by Orient and it remains a very popular watch. It's also available in a green dial, red dial, black dial or this blue dial version that we're looking at here. And of those colour options, I think the blue sunburst dial is the most aesthetically pleasing. I think it really complements the blue aluminium bezel insert. So with regards to the specifications of this Kamasu, it's a 42mm diameter case. It has a 22mm lug width, a lug-to-lug measurement of 46mm and a thickness of 13mm. Now, the 46mm lug-to-lug measurement is relatively short, bearing in mind that this is a large 42mm piece. I really regard 48mm to be the sweet spot when it comes to lug measurements, because 48mm really will suit collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches and also collectors with a larger wrist of say 7 to 8 inches like myself. At 46mm, this really is a piece that will suit collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches. So that's very reassuring, bearing in mind that it is a large piece at 42mm diameter. Although it's 13mm thick, there's no Cyclops magnifier on the sapphire crystal, it's flat. So it does slip easily underneath a shirt cuff and it is a large but low profile piece. So I would say to you, if you're a collector with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, don't be put off by the large 42mm case. It really will fit a collector with a smaller wrist because of that relatively short 46mm lug-to-lug measurement. So with regards to the rest of the specification, The rubber strap version we're looking at here only weighs 102 grams. Now contrast that to a stainless steel bracelet version. For example, if you buy this on the oyster style bracelet, it weighs 150 grams. So effectively this is 50 grams lighter than the bracelet version, and that means that it's far more comfortable and therefore it gives more feel-good factor when on the wrist. So again, if you're a collector with a smaller wrist, I strongly advise you buy the watch on the rubber strap rather than the oyster style bracelet, because you are saving 50 grams in heft, and therefore if you're going to wear the watch daily for long periods of time, for example between 8 and 12 hours per day, 102 grams is a very lightweight automatic watch in a 42mm case. So this is a very lightweight and comfortable piece to wear for long periods of time. So it's a 200 meter water resistant piece. It has a screw down crown and also a solid stainless steel screw down case back, so it is a credible dive piece. Unlike the Seiko 5KX, which doesn't have a loom pip on the bezel insert and it has a push-pull crown, this is a credible 200 meter dive watch. It really is a functional and credible 200 meter water resistant dive piece. So interesting specification because it has a sapphire crystal, and again I think that makes this watch superior to its closest competitor, which would be the Seiko 5KX. The 5KX has a push-pull crown as I've discussed, and it also uses a hardlex crystal which is not as scratch resistant as the sapphire crystal used in this Kamasu. Now the negative of the sapphire crystal is it doesn't have any AR coating on the underside, and as you can see when I tilt that flat sapphire crystal in the light, it does reflect the light, and that can be a problem. One gets glare off the sunburst dial, the applied indices and also the arrow hands. So that's something to consider if legibility is important to you. If you like a watch with AR coating, the lack of anti-reflective coating will be a negative for many collectors. Personally, I don't regard it to be a problem because the flat sapphire crystal gives excellent clarity and legibility to the dial. So beautifully executed blue sunburst dial, applied indices which are symmetrical. The day-date complication is well framed with a chrome finish to the framing. The arrow hands are very well executed, and also the tip of the sweeping second hand has a red tip to it which contrasts beautifully with both the applied indices and also the blue sunburst dial. I really like it. I like the symmetry of the dial, I like the legibility of it, and I like the design of the arrow hands. It's a credit to Orient that they haven't copied Seiko's design for the dial layout and also the hands. They've come up with their own design. The arrow hands really are very legible and functional, and I really like the symmetry of the applied indices. The applied indices really are better quality than the printed dials, for example, used on a Seiko SKX 007. And I really think it's a credit to Orient that they've come up with their unique design aspects, such as the bezel. It has a solid stainless steel 120 click unidirectional bezel, but there are some indentations which mean that the bezel isn't just a copy of a Seiko 5KX or Seiko SKX 007 bezel. It is a unique design to the Kamasu, so I really like it. The finishing to that stainless steel bezel is done to perfection. Now, in terms of bezel action, it's very similar to a Seiko 5KX or alternatively the Seiko SKX 007. Nice firm resistance. It's got a very pleasant loud clicking sound to the bezel and minimal backplay. Now, I'm pleased to report that unlike Seiko watches, this Orient has perfect alignment. The loom pip on the bezel insert aligns perfectly with the chapter ring and the 12 o'clock index on the dial, so build quality is good. Now, with regards to the crown feels undersized, although in terms of its execution it is very well made. So it's a solid stainless steel crown and it's laser engraved with the Orient brand logo. Personally, I feel that the crown would be more comfortable and functional if it were scaled up in proportion to the size of a Seiko 5KX crown. The crown does feel undersized and therefore it's more difficult to grip between one's index finger and thumb when unscrewing it and screwing it back in. But I'm pleased that it's a screw down crown rather than a push-pull crown, because the screw down crown provides a better effective hermetic seal to 200 meters of water resistance. On a Seiko 5KX, the crown is a push-pull crown and therefore it only provides 100 meters of hermetic seal. So it's good to see a good quality screw down crown. Now, in terms of its action, it doesn't feel silky smooth, although the operation is okay. The negative is that some collectors have reported problems threading the crown. It can be difficult to get the threads to pick up between the crown and the crown tube. And some collectors have also reported a production defect in that sometimes the crown will wobble on the stem and even come off in the worst case scenario. So that's just something one has to live with. The build quality of the crown and crown tube aren't as good as Seiko on the SKX 007, for example, although it is acceptable. This one's working okay. So I'll talk you through the rest of the specification of the piece. This watch uses the Epson caliber F6922 automatic movement. So the Epson movements are made for Orient and they're completely made in-house in Japan. It's a 22 jewel automatic movement with hand winding and hacking, as I've discussed. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour, which is the same as Seiko movements such as the 4R36. The caliber F6922 has a 40-hour power reserve and it is a very reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. I would describe the caliber F6922 as being equal in quality to the Seiko 4R36, which is used in the Seiko 5KX and also the Seiko Turtle. It has a stated accuracy of -15 seconds to +25 seconds per day. And I'm pleased to report that this one is running at +6 seconds per day, which is perfectly acceptable. I actually think +6 seconds per day from an Orient movement is actually very good, bearing in mind that this watch only costs £190. So I regard the F6922 to be equal to the 4R36, which comes in the Seiko 5KX. So the F6922 is a well-proven movement. Orient also use it in the Ray 2 and the Mako 2, and they've used it for a number of years. They've used it in this piece since 2018, but prior to that it was used for many years in the Ray 2 and the Mako 2, and there are no reported reliability issues with the caliber F6922 Epson movement. Really the only negative is the crown execution, as I've discussed, the crown failing, but the movement itself is very reliable. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now it's often the case that watches just have a strap which is a fraction too short, but on this Orient Kamasu I'm pleased to report that the silicone rubber strap does actually fit my 8-inch wrist. As you can see, there's plenty of length on the strap, and that's very good. So if you're a collector with a larger wrist like myself of 7 to 8 inches, you will have no problem whatsoever wearing the watch on this silicone rubber strap. The silicone rubber strap is very well executed. It feels more soft and supple than the rubber straps that come on Seiko watches. So I actually think the Orient rubber straps are superior. The silicone rubber feels a lot softer. With Seiko straps, the rubber feels stiffer, more like plastic. So as you can see, that 46mm lug-to-lug measurement means that the watch fits very well on my wrist. It wraps around it very well. I really like the 22mm lug width and I like the overall fit of the watch. 13mm thick is reasonably low profile, and the flat sapphire crystal without a Cyclops magnifier over the day-date complication at 3 o'clock means that it does wear large on the wrist, but it is very flat. So very aesthetically pleasing. It's nice to look at the watch at an oblique angle and look at that blue sunburst style and the blue aluminium bezel insert. Very well finished piece. Now, with regards to the rubber strap, very comfortable as I've discussed. It gives good feel, good factor when on the wrist. The underside has a grained finish, which is very comfortable, and as you can see, it says Orient on the underside, and the end of the silicone rubber strap is signed with the Orient brand logo. So very nicely finished, and I like the fact it's supple and doesn't need breaking in. When one wears this watch on the wrist, it really does already feel broken in. It has the expansion gaps as one would expect for wearing the watch with a wetsuit. So really this watch is designed with functionality in mind, and it is a credible 200-meter water resistant dive piece. Now, with regards to the buckle, it's got a nice heavy gauge of metal. It's brushed satin finish stainless steel. It's not signed with Orient, but I think that's acceptable because of the price point of the piece, and I really like it. I think it's a buckle which is going to last. There's only one keeper on the strap which slides, as you can see, but it's perfectly acceptable. And I think the rubber strap is good. I think the rubber strap is a better alternative than the stainless steel bracelet because of the hollow end links and the pressed metal clasp that one gets. So really I would advise that you buy this watch on the silicone rubber strap, and then if you want it on a bracelet, I would advise you upgrade it to the strap code Super O Boya. So with regards to the case back, solid stainless steel which provides an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters of water resistance. The underside of the case is mirror polished to a very high standard, as is the case back. The center section of the solid stainless steel case back is laser engraved with the Specification and the Orient brand logo, and also Epson, which is the parent company, as I've discussed. So very nice contrast, because the center section is brushed satin finish with concentric brushing, and the outer section is mirror polished to a flawless finish. The case finishing and polishing of this piece throughout is exceptional. It really is a credit to Orient. They haven't cut any corners with regards to their case finishing. Nice mirror polished flanks to the case. The top side of the lugs is brushed into a satin grain finish. And one thing I really like about this watch, bearing in mind it's a low tier price point piece, is in between the lugs is mirror polished to a flawless mirror finish. And that's a credit to Orient, because it's often the case that with low tier brands that they cut corners with regards to the production costs. They do not finish in between the lugs to the same standard as the flanks of the case. In between the lugs is often brushed satin finish, and it's polished to an absolutely flawless mirror finish between both of the lugs, as you can see, to the same standard as the underside of the case and also the flanks. So overall, the quality of the finishing to the stainless steel bezel, the flanks of the case back and the crown are all excellent. I really think it's 10 out of 10 finishing. I really like the build quality of it and also the finishing. I think it's of a very high standard. So I'll give you a loom test, and you can see how the loom performs when it's fully charged to its absolute maximum. So I'm charging it up with my 100 LED torch, and you can see how the loom looks. Now, bearing in mind that Seiko Epson is the parent company of Orient, one would expect high performance quality loom of a similar performance to Seiko Lumibright. So it will be interesting to see how brightly and the length of time that the loom glows on this Kamasu. Now, I'm pleased to report that, as you can see, the loom on this Kamasu is outstanding quality. I like the fact it has a loom pip on the bezel inserts, which is something the Seiko 5KX doesn't have. And as you can see, the applied indices have large loom plots. They're glowing very brightly, and I'm pleased to report they're also glowing for a good length of time. Absolutely outstanding legibility. One can clearly see the orientation of the dial because of the large triangle at 12 o'clock for the 12 o'clock index, and it really is a very functional and well-loomed dial and handset. I really like it. I think that the green tone of the loom is very aesthetically pleasing. It reminds me of C3 Superluminova. So it's continuing to glow very brightly and glow for a good length of time. I would regard the Orient loom to be equal in quality to Seiko Lumibrights used on the Seiko 5KX, for example. Very good quality loom, very impressive, and I'm very pleased with it. So lastly, I'll surmise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, it should meet two criteria. The watch should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So the price point of this Kamasu is £190 on the black silicone rubber strap, as I've discussed. It's certainly excellent quality, and I consider it to be excellent value due to the strong specification. Sapphire crystal at this price point is very impressive. Day-date complication piece, 200 meter water resistant. It has a screw down crown and screw down case back. So really it's a higher specification piece than the Seiko 5KX, which would be the direct competitor to the watch. The Seiko 5KX only has a hard Lex crystal, and it also has a push-pull crown rather than the screw-down crown of this Kamasu. So I actually regard this Kamasu to be a technically better watch. Now, when it comes down to movement versus movement, the Seiko 5KX uses the 4R36, which is a movement with hand winding and hacking, and it runs with the same accuracy and also the same beat rate of 21,600 vibrations per hour. So there's nothing really between the movements of the Kamasu and the 5KX like for like. but I actually prefer this watch. I think it's a better executed watch. The blue sunburst dial with symmetrical indices and arrow hands is more aesthetically pleasing than the Seiko 5KX dial and hands. Overall, I think this is a better looking piece. I think the specification is better, and I really like the sapphire crystal. Really, at £190, it's unusual to get a Japanese-made watch with a sapphire crystal, and everything about it is very well done. The hand winding and hacking, day-date complication with a quick set date function. It's just a very well-made watch. So what are the negatives of the piece? Well, really, this is a watch that only has one negative, and it is the undersized crown and the fact that the crown isn't silky smooth to operate, but it is okay and it does work to an acceptable standard. And really that is the only criticism I have of the watch, the crown execution. Everything else about the watch is very well done. The specification is there, the value is there, the build quality and the quality control. And most satisfying about it is that it doesn't have any alignment issues. It's often the case with Seiko watches. They have chaptering, bezel misalignment issues, for example, but the alignment and the quality control of this Orient Kamasu is outstanding. So I'm going to recommend it. I regard this watch to be a champagne watch for lemonade money. I think it is outstanding, and I think it's worthy for consideration for any collector to include in your collection. So I hope you've liked my review of the Orient Kamasu. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.